Hello folks, it's David with URAL Motorcycles, and I am back with you this time to do a small series of videos called Spring Service Tips. And yes, it's a little late in the year for spring service tips, as spring is going to be over in a few weeks. In fact, my boss Ilya joked that I should call it Alaska Spring Service Tips, as some parts of Alaska are still thawing out. So this series of videos is going to cover some very basic service items that many of you Ural owners tackle at home. It's not to detract from what the dealers do, but we already know that a lot of you are adjusting your valves and changing your oil filters, inspecting, and even changing brake pads. So we're going to cover those basic topics, and although this may be old information for many of you, you got to remember that we are always welcoming new Ural owners into the fold, and this information is going to be new to them and probably prove to be very beneficial. The bike we'll be using is a 2017, which will be a good representation. Since the fuel injection was introduced in 2014 all the way to current model year 2021, the 17 represents a good middle period for that time. A lot of this will also retroactively be very familiar to you folks with older 650s or the early carbureted 750s. A lot of this is still the same as far as the mechanics of doing it. Maybe not the exact part looks the same, but we're also going to cover that too. That's partly why I'm rehashing some of the topics that I've already covered, because since I started doing my videos, there's been a few changes at the factory for oil recommendations and things like that, which we'll get to. And I also want to cover old versus new parts when you're talking about oil filters or air filters, or even the crush washer around the drain plug, what you can buy for your new bike that is retrofittable to the old bikes. And then in the last 12 months, we've also added a whole bunch of service items to our online store that you can now go buy online and have it shipped directly to you. And this is not to take business away from the dealers. We still have a very fine line that we draw with what is a service item and what is a repair item. So all repair items still need to go through a dealer, and we have offered drop shipping now to our dealerships. So anything that isn't in our online store, you can still call your dealer, and if the agreement is made between you, the customer, and the dealer, they can place an order for you and have it drop shipped if they opt to do that on your behalf. As far as drop shipments are concerned, anything that is warranty related, obviously that needs to go through a dealer. We cannot ship, nor can the dealer ship directly to you any warranty related parts. If any of the topics that I cover are out of your comfort zone, we always encourage you to support your local dealership or service center and seek out their help, advice, and expertise when it comes to servicing your Ural. To see what's available directly, you can go to IMZ-Ural.com, click shop. It'll take you directly to our online store. You click maintenance, and you can see all the service parts that are available for you to order. If there's something not listed in the online store, that is an item that you're going to have to go to your dealer to order. In addition to our online store, I'd also like to mention several other tools that we have now made available to you. If you go to our website, across the top in the support tab, when you click on that and drop it down, you're going to see a whole bunch of new items that some have been there a while and some are new, but you can access a parts catalog going all the way back to 2010 model years, all the way to current. You can also access several owner's manuals going back many, many years. There's all kinds of tools that are there at your disposal. If you don't have a paper manual, you can read a PDF version of one there. A lot of people don't realize that these tools are available to them, as well as I said, parts catalogs for your specific year that have an exploded view of specific sections like the engine, the gearbox, the final drive, all these things finely detailed with part numbers and their locations in the bike. So if you don't know where something goes, you can look at the exploded view and see how everything fits together. You can also use that catalog to build a list of parts that you can email to your dealer or print off and take to your dealer, and they can order those hard parts for you. This is one of just many ways that we've been trying to support our Ural owners who have supported us over the years. Now I've talked long enough. We'll get into servicing this bike. We're going to start with a simple oil change on all 3 locations, and we're going to look at the air filter and inspect it and see if it needs to be changed. Get my favorite blue working chair so I can talk to you. So what you're going to need to start is a handful of paper towels or your favorite rag, gloves if you prefer, 17mm tool of your choice, either a short socket or a wrench will work, your favorite oil filter remover. So if somebody hasn't got this Hulk tight, you put on your gloves, and we're going to crack this loose and just let it sit there. That'll help prevent any vacuum buildup as the oil's draining. It'll let it drain a little bit faster. Place that drain pan under the sump, and you'll see the drain plug right there. So we're going to take our 17mm tool, and we're going to take the drain plug out. Make sure you have some rags to catch any residual drips that are going to be on your hand when you pull that thing out. Now, before you get crazy wiping everything off of the drain plug, you're going to want to inspect the magnet that's on it, and you'll see there's a little fuzz on it. Now, this is actually the first oil change this bike has ever received since it was new, and I set it up for the marketing event that it was originally built for back in 2017. Fast forward to 2021, I got it here. It's got like 501 miles on it, and it's getting its first service. So a lot of what you see here is actual break-in fuzz, I guess you could call it. It's nothing really to concern yourself about. There used to be a joke that the Russians would assemble the bike, or machine and assemble the bike, and that you would do the final machining while you rode it. The tolerances have been greatly improved, and a lot of the internals are now outsourced. Yeah, the bike is a pretty good mix of parts from all over the world now. A lot of what you see here is just basic break-in fuzz or debris collected in the pan. So way back when, you used to have a little aluminum crush washer, and it might have been just like this, or it might have been a little bit fatter around. They've changed shape and size over the years. And then going into 2014 or so, I don't remember exactly the year, they went to the aluminum washer with the rubber sealing ring. Now, this particular drain plug actually has the little rubber one. So when you clean it off and inspect it, if it's torn, ripped, deformed, or anything of that nature, you're going to want to replace it. This one actually, it is its first service. It still looks very good, just a little dirty. So you wipe it off and put it back into use. Both these items will be made available in the shop. These are considered service items, so you will be able to order these from us directly. Once you've gotten down to the point where it's a last little drip, 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 you know, once every few seconds, and you've cleaned off your drain plug, you can give a little wipe to the surface area and get that thing started in there and tighten it back up. And believe it or not, there is a torque spec for all three drain plugs. It's the same. It's 22 Newton meters, which works out to 16.2 foot-pounds. So I usually just go 16, round it down a little bit, and I've never had a problem. If you got a little leak, you can always increase it. There we are, 16. Yeah, 16 foot-pounds. If you have access to your tools. If you're on the road, just snug it up. It's not a head bolt. Just snug it up until it feels good and tight, and inspect it after for leaks. If it leaks, give it another little and you should be good. Now here's where you're going to take your favorite oil filter wrench and take off this oil filter. Now, typically the first one is going to be a little rough, as you can see by the condition of the outside edge here, where my filter wrench is really gripping into it. There we go. It's because some guy who's a bodybuilder at the factory put it on. And it's the same guy doing it today in 2021. So once you got it broken loose with your wrench, then you can pretty much do it by hand. But before you get the gasket off the surface where it's going to start leaking, get your pan under there. And then just before you're ready to spin this thing off, if you're worried about a mess, you can take some old rags or paper towels, or you can use an old piece of cereal box cardboard or whatever you want to protect the crossover pipe if you still have stock exhaust. If you do this quick, you're not going to lose too much. And actually, most of it drained back into the case, so didn't have a lot sitting in the filter. And since we're at that point, I guess I can talk about oil filters. So in 2014, we came out with the spin-on oil filter, and that has continued to this day. Now, for older bikes, you would have had a cartridge style like this, which wasn't just the filter, but also a little top hat bushing that would go into there. And then that would go on the cap that screwed it in. And then there was also this rubber O-ring that sealed the cap as well. All of these would deteriorate over time with heat and use, and you might get 1 or 2 oil changes typically, I think, out of these items before you'd have to replace them. All these items are still available from us directly in our shop. And shortly after 2014, when we came out with this new front cover, we came out with a conversion kit for the bikes with the old style oil filter to convert to the new style filter, and then it has a bump out for the electronic ignition as well. So if you want that conversion kit, that is something you'd have to go to your dealer for, and they can give you price and availability on it. But it's a pretty cool kit. It allows you to use the new style filter. The Ural oil filters, these are also available in the shop. Oh, and look, they changed the logo on them. So we're going to go ahead and put on the new filter. I'd take a little cleaner and clean up the mating surface. Get all the old stuff off. If there's any old rubber, you're going to want to scrape that off or scrub it off. You know, if there's rubber chunks, most of the time it's just going to be oil residue. As for the rest of it, it's in the directions right on the side. You can't go wrong. What do? You wipe the surface clean. You pre-fill the filter a little bit with oil. I just do very little bit so it doesn't spill all over when I'm putting it back on. And once it makes contact with the surface, you only turn it another 3/4 of a turn. And always recycle. What I'm going to do is take my bulk oil, just put a little bit in there. And then I'm going to take some of that oil and I'm going to rub it on the gasket. Like I said, this is probably old information for a lot of you, but you never know. This might help somebody out. Now back to the bike. See if I can get all this on. Okay, so you got to be quick so you don't get a lot of spills. You got to be ready to tilt it and start threading. Contact. And see, that little bit I put in didn't really come out. So if contact, you know, my letter A here is pointing up, I want to go quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn. I want to point out something else too. So I've gone to IMZ-Ural.com. I don't have the specific manual available to me for 2017 right offhand. So if you go up here, there's 3 little lines. You hit that and it brings up this drop down and it says support. I hit support and it says how-to guides, tech videos, product spotlights, etc., etc. It also says owner's manual. Hit owner's manual. You get 2019-21, 2018, 2017 owner's manual and wiring diagram. Hit owner's manual and ta-da! It's a virtual representation of our whole owner's manual. So now I can go down to the table of contents and I can go to lubrication, engine and chassis maintenance, etc., and then scroll down to those areas. And here we got engine oil filter and replacement, and it's going over all the things I just talked about. And then it gives me the specifications. Fill the engine with 2.1 liters of recommended motor oil. And remove the dipstick. And because I am spoiled, I have access to bulk oil, and I have filled it to 2.1 liters, which is 2.21905 quarts. So, but you got to remember, I put a little bit in the oil filter too. So we're going to fill this up. Okay. So for those of you who remember when I started doing these videos a year ago, you can go on YouTube and actually watch those first videos. I talk about checking the fluid level. So we're going to pull this out, put that in there so it doesn't drip all over. So when checking the fluid level on the engine, you don't have to screw it all the way back in. You just dip and check. And our 2.1 liters with the little bit that was in the filter has brought it right to the top mark, which is where you want to be. And when you're done, we're going to run over. You're supposed to run the motor for like 5 minutes and check for leaks and everything and recheck all your fluid levels. So that looks pretty good. We're going to snug that up, not gorilla tight, just snug it down. If it leaks a little bit or you get any a little bit of misty blow by after you drive it, then give it an extra little turn. But for the most part, you don't have to really lock it down. So in the other video I said 2.6, that was dry capacity. After it's been drained and it's got, you know, residual oil, 2.1. And then, like I said, there was the little bit in the filter too.